In the past, it was just miles, mileage. And now a lot of people on a periodization in their training where they're working in phases to prepare for a goal event. Well, alrighty here on another episode for the Light on the Trail podcast. I'm joined with a coach and rising trail star and a good guy all around, dad, teacher, amongst many things, Mr. Philip Sebastiani, sir, and he's no stranger. This will be his second time on the podcast. We'll talk about that a little later. But Mr. Philip, dude, thank you for coming on. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. I've been listening to your podcast too, kind of since it started, and you've done some great stuff, and I appreciate you having me on again.
Oh man, awesome! Thank you so much. Yeah, if you haven't heard of Philip somehow, but he's been in a handful of other podcasts, definitely in like the DFW area. And even, were you on? When was that? We'll have to talk about that too. There's so much. We were just talking before we record. I think after you did Sedona, you were on a radio station. Is that correct?
Yeah, like my local radio sports.
I thought it was up there. And you're like way North Texas, like Canyon, Texas, or like Panhandle area?
Yeah, Panhandle, just south of Amarillo. But I mean, I was interviewed in Amarillo. I mean, like suburb, 20 minutes kind of thing.
Okay, awesome. He's very Googleable. You check out the guy, search for him, especially in the Texas trail running kind of scene. He's there, but he is also a coach, and that was the idea behind this episode. And the episodes that I've had with some of the coaches now is like, and I was telling Philip, the 2025 comes, or anytime someone wants to step up or we think about new year, new me, and I want to try new things, and it's a good time to start new things and try new things. So some people get the thought of maybe I need to look into a coach. I want to get fitter. I want to get faster, insert reason or whatnot. And so I wanted to pick the brain of some coaches. So Philip was gracious enough to give some of his time here. And like we'll say, he's also an athlete and a trainer too. So we'll kind of get right into it, Philip. But so what was, I don't want to say what was your like first plan, but you can kind of your background, I guess, of fitness and health, and then coaching, or any like, I don't know, certificates for that, or did it come, I think, like more of a runner first, and like really you appreciate fitness and like running and stuff, and you like, obviously again, you being a teacher and you can touch on that, but like helping people and you want to kind of give that back or something. But how did coaching start, and kind of what's your background in running and health and everything?
Yeah, so I started running in high school as a way to lose weight, and I was pretty overweight. So I'm 5'4", and I was about 220 pounds. So you can picture that. And now I sit around 150. But as I got through high school, I wanted to keep trying running. So I was able to walk on to Eastern Oregon University cross country and track team. We were NAI school, but we were like a top 5 NAI school. So we competed pretty well amongst D2 and D3 ranks. And from there, I just really fell with running, especially the longer stuff. I felt like the longer the race, the better I did. And as I got done with my undergrad, went to graduate school, and I studied music, so not necessarily something in fitness and health. I wanted to, share the knowledge that I've gained, over to running in high school and running as a collegiate athlete. So I coached some middle school track and field and cross country in West Virginia when we lived there. And really that opened my eyes to giving someone the right amount of stimulus, especially a middle school athlete. Because, I was used to doing so much more as a collegiate athlete. We ran a lot, and knowing then what is the right amount for them is really what I learned in those 3.5 years that I was coaching there. And then we moved here to Texas, and I knew I wanted to try ultra running, but the training theory around it is very different, I think, in the way. As I went through and trying to learn what a good training program looks like for an ultra runner. And so I got certified through 80/20, which is championed by Matt Fitzgerald. So I'm an 80/20 endurance certified coach, and I was part of their Coaches of Color initiative. So I was able then to go through their course and And I think also what's helped me is that I have my own coach. I'm coached by someone. And I think that's important for anyone who wants to progress, is have somebody looking at your training that isn't just you, and I can, like, objectively look at what you're doing. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, I think I've gathered so much knowledge that I feel comfortable helping people and being more than responsible for, their journey for however long we work together. So I started Infinite Endurance Coaching, and I have a few people that I'm working with. One like DFW area, some local people, and I've seen progress in their training, and it's kind of cool to kind of have full circle that now I'm getting to help people, and I have spots open, and I'd love to help more people reach their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, and I can only imagine. In you're a dad as well, so being a father, and like when you have that in your relationship, that you're putting time to someone that you want them to do better, and then if it's something like running, and you're working with someone that you like, I like running, and you like running, I can help you get better, and then they get better, and you're like, whoa, like that's it. It must be really nice again. And I've kind of I talked about that before, and it's really cool, and especially if you're a teacher. I think that shows obviously you're putting your time into that again, and being a dad. Or I'll preface that with, like, if you're a good dad, you're trying to take care of your kids. But your kid is also I was gonna say athlete, but I guess he is running and in track. And I actually was looking into getting my kids into track around where I live, and I asked you about that stuff too. So you're very, very involved in that scene. But it's also on my notes here, I have it kind of further down. They're a little bit of a jumble, but I was going to ask that because I think that's a really interesting point, and good, that you are a coach, you're also an athlete, but you are also coached by someone else. So you can kind of you stand with that, like you need someone outside of your head, your own body, to look at what you're doing and see your goal, because we'll be biased to ourselves, or we'll maybe trick ourselves into thinking, justify XYZ, like, I don't need to do this today, or I do need to do this today, blah blah. And some people function, I think, better if they're prescribed something by somebody else, or if I'm going to trust myself, like, hey, I paid this coach, like I reached out to Philip, we worked out this deal. Do I not trust myself that I found a good coach? I'm going to do it. And I think that alone, kind of like with signing up for a race, some people, and it helps me if I sign up for a race a couple months down the road, now I have a goal, and I kind of work backwards from that, and I kind of build towards it, or have a plan. It gives it gives me more of a target to aim on. So I think when you get coaching, so you have, you're coached, you are a coach, you kind of see both sides of it, and not kind of get stuck. What's that saying? Like stuck in the forest and not be able to see the trees, or something like that. I'm treading in that area of that saying, but how does that affect? And I was thinking of it like with, like if a doctor or a nurse has to go to the hospital for themselves, and like, I'm sure they overthink things. Like when your coach is coaching you, which obviously he's doing something right. One who I noticed, and you can, if you want to, you can say who it is, but he knows he's doing very well himself. And but and you just you're with the 24-hour race that you did he's doing something right. But do you find it hard to be coached sometimes, that you are a coach, like you think you should be doing something and you're prescribed something else?
So I think that just goes back to one of, like, the core beliefs I have, that a growth mindset is really the best way to progress in life, or anything you decide to chase after, right? So always remembering then to be teachable. And if you need to ask a question, ask a question. So the great thing about working with Zach, so I'm coached by Zach Bitter, American record holder, 100-mile and 12-hour, former world record holder, great guy in general. We always have a two-way conversation about my training. And if I have a question about something, or I need to move something, I think that's really important, that you have someone who's flexible and understanding. Then, well, if we have to move this, then there's this cascading that we have to move, and still keeping track of the big picture. with that. And going back to like even just some of the people I've started to coach, I've kept that with, because it's something I would appreciate. I think about when I'm talking with an athlete, how would I want to be treated? How would I want to be worked with? We're adults, right?
Right.
And because things happen in life, someone might have missed their long run or this or that. And sometimes I'll even plan a little extra just in case something like that happens, because life happens and it's not the end of the world if you miss a session or two. But there are certain boxes you need to check along the way if you want, the end result that you're shooting for.
That's a good way to put it, right? Of course, life happens. Don't beat yourself up, but stay in it, right? Remember your goal or what you signed up for. And I think a lot of us in anything other than they're running too, like you can, I don't know, maybe if you're crazy or kind of misled in a certain way, but you can get like a gut feeling when you like, I know, like when I make an excuse for a run that I don't do or something, and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, you could have done that, or you should have done this, or whatever. Same on the other side. If you do get out there and get some done and put a couple miles on it, or whatever, and you can tell like, man, that was good. Now I'm feeling good today, and I got it done. I'm so happy. Whatever. So, all right, staying honest with yourself, and by just trying to grow. When you do take on, and you, I don't want to say client. Is that the right? Whatever. If someone comes to you to be,
that's the word I like to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
A person's coming to be coached. Is there, what is one of your favorite things to kind of get into, or that you find? I know everyone's different. I don't want to say so the most beneficial. No, I'll word it that way. So what is something you find that ultimately or generally kind of like affect most clients, people that are wanting to be trained in a positive way, as far as could everyone, is it typically like recovery, nutrition, strength, longer runs, something like that, or what do you get excited about and that you find the most like kind of growth from?
Yeah. So usually when I'm onboarding someone and, they want to work with me, what I've done is I have them fill out a questionnaire, and it's just for me to get an idea of their running history. And because I can't discern a lot of that from Strava or lineup results, right? I want it firsthand, first account from them. So it's generally, how many days a week do you run? What's your mileage like in the past? What kind of races have you done? Have you had any injuries in the past? Is there a specific type of cross training you like? Some people don't like elliptical, but some people will bike.
Okay.
Things like, have you ever done strength training? Have you done speed work before? And then from there, it's then usually me going and seeing those figures and those numbers, and then working within that realm of what their body's used to. And because really what good training is, it's micro stressing, recovery, and it's this continuous like cycle of you're micro stressing the body, recover, and you may overstress for a little bit and recover, because as long as you're providing your body with a stimulus that is more or less confusing it and telling it that, oh, I need to be ready for the next time he or she wants to do this, you'll see improvement in fitness. So a lot of people, what I see is they're doing one-sided or one-shaded types of training, where it's they'll run a lot of the same types of runs, but if you start to incorporate different levels of intensity, it works to move the needle, improve fitness, and especially if you're training for an ultra, because the majority of your training is going to be at a faster speed than race day. At least that's how I think it should be. Like I call it overspeed training, right? I mean, for me, I do a lot of my recovery runs or zone one runs in low 8-minute pace. But when I'm going like what I did for the 24-hour race I just did, I averaged 10:03. So when I'm pulling back that much, my body's a lot more efficient because it's capable of running faster.
Yeah. If I'm used to, this speed, and that's kind of what I've trained at, or I know that intensity of whatever it may be for somebody, right? But the game day pace is, like you said, 2 minutes slower or whatever. that should really help you both mentally and physically. When you're like, and I do that when I'm like, today you're not going to go past this speed. You're going to go, you're going to go slow.
Mhm.
Don't go fast. And I'm like, okay, we're doing okay. And I look down, I'm still doing like faster than I wanted to do. And I'm like, holy cow. And you slow down to what you want, what you're supposed to be, you know, down. And you're like, this is so slow. I'm like, but if you do it for, 10 minutes or so, you're like, you kind of settle in there. It's just that I want to go faster or whatnot. And you settle in and you're like, okay. And like, I immediately after I tried again there, but if you focus, like you're saying on a faster speed and then your 50K comes or whatever, that's got to help mentally too. You're like, oh, I was doing all that stuff at this speed and this hard intensity. So now it's just, right. It's time on feet to complete it and get down the road for it and stuff. So that's it. I would definitely see that working. I think, and for me personally, but I think like the mental side, placebo effect, even like stuff helps a lot.
Yeah, and training theory has changed quite a bit. In the past, it was just mileage. And now a lot of people on a periodization in their training where they're working in phases to prepare for a goal event. So if you want, I can kind of talk to you about what my training was leading up to the 24-hour.
Ooh,
time for that.
Yeah, definitely.
It was periodized. That's a hard word to say.
How it was periodized? Is that right? Yeah, whatever. I know what you're talking about.
Periodization. It's easier to say.
Ooh, yeah, that's
than the other one. So it was a 24-week build for me, and it started with, which is pretty typical for these types of builds, is a base phase of training. So I was doing runs that were in my like upper zone 2 to lower zone 3. So for me, I mean, I'm just throwing out a bunch of numbers, but for me, it's like a heart rate that rests somewhere between 155 maybe to 160.
Okay.
And I would do
2 to 3, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least for me, that's where my heart rate zone lies. And that was a majority of the summer. I didn't do much long runs. I mean, I would do probably, I call them base runs. So probably 4 or 5 base runs a week and just working on aerobic fitness and moving oxygen through the body.
Okay.
Because you're breathing a little hard on these, but it's not like you're racing a 5K. Yeah. So it's the type of zone where you could do it multiple days in a row and still be able to produce the same pace.
Okay. And the idea with these first kind of base ones kind of starting, or the foundation of this, is like in this realm, right? We've heard this term, is it kind of like building your engine?
Yeah. So it's getting you ready for faster running later. Because if you were just to start doing like a short interval or something really quick right away, well, aerobically your body's not there yet, and really this type of training bridges that gap. So when you get to it, it's not that much of a surprise to your body.
I would say, especially if you have like a 24-hour or 100K kind of goal thing.
Yeah. And really, as I moved from there, I moved into a pretty extensive short interval phase where I was doing a lot of track workouts, and really just to boost my running economy. So I did a lot of intervals, like in a low 5-minute pace for quite a bit, just to get things moving faster. So then 10-minute pace would feel a lot easier, right? And then from there, I moved into a threshold phase. So all of these phases are like 5 to 6 weeks, right?
Okay.
Moved into the threshold phase, which is, it's the point in your heart rate where like your body is producing lactate, normally like heavy legs, but your body's still able to flush it out. So you're not super duper heavy.
Yeah. Getting into like anaerobic area.
Yeah. So for me, that's like when my heart rate's like in the 170s, 160, upper 160s, 170s. And I moved into that. And then from there, I moved into a long run phase. And the long run phase is really what got me to practice more of the race pace that I wanted for race day. And along the way, I could see my body becoming more efficient. Pace is becoming easier. So that's how you show like that micro stress is working, and the recovery that would happen, able to come back and do it again. And I always like to trickle in 2 or 3 like training races, and did a few of those. And
yeah.
And it is where it is. I did one that was a little longer than I wanted it to be, and stuff like that.
what? Okay, let me not get lost. So in my own head, what is first? What does Philip call a long run? Like, what was the longest run other than a race? But so what's like a long run to you out
So
there
for me,
to prep for a
if
24-hour
it's
race?
just a normal like long, so 'cause I would still do a long run at, on like a Saturday through all this training, and it fluctuated between 2 to 3 hours. But then when I moved into a long run phase where I specifically was practicing a little bit longer, it'd be like a 5 hour and then a 3 hour.
Okay.
And that was really, so like a Saturday 5 hour, Sunday 3 hour. And that was really like, I would say the peak of it. I mean, during that time too, I did have a niggle in my IT.
Oh,
So I like would cut an hour, but I mean, it was at a pace that was manageable for me where I could still run it,
yeah, yeah.
just
Okay.
in a little pain. But really, I do my training based on time, and this didn't really start till I started working with Zach, and how he explained it to me, which really I just love, is going on time is way more individualized than going by distance. Because consider if I were just ask you to go for like a 10-mile run, well, it might take you longer than like
Right.
your wife,
Right.
right? So if your wife is taking much longer, she's out there much longer, body's breaking down way longer. But if you capped it at a time, it's individualized to the level of fitness that you're at right
Yeah.
then and there.
100%. Yeah, that makes way more sense. And I've had a buddy kind of tell me we were talking about like I'm gonna do a long run this or that, and that's kind of how he like prefaced it was like, "Wow, I really want to do like a 2 hour," and like I was like, "Oh, right." He didn't say let's go do 15 miles or something else. He was like, "I need time on feet with Twitter." So I was like, "Yeah, I like that." And kind of I get caught sometimes, especially if I'm so close to like topping at an hour, and I'm like, I just want to run around this neighborhood or go down this trail, and I'll look at my watch and we're like at 6.82, like looks like we're doing a couple more to finish it up at 8 or 9 to top of the mile. So I give myself a little more leeway if I'm just like 2 hours and get there, and I still will be like, if it's close to the next mile, I'll be like, we'll jog around the parking lot. But
Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. I'll go to like the nearest 10th or something.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
do you speak it well? Okay. I get lost again. So how, as the year's wrapping up, I think you're over. I was gonna say your mileage for the year. Uh, were you like over like 3,000 or something this year?
Yeah, I was looking at it the other day actually because I'm on an off season right now, and I was like, oh, I need to run like this much more to get to 3,500. So I'm like at a little over 3,400,
Oh yes,
and just a few weeks left in the year. And really, that's around the mileage I was last year. So really,
really?
what I switched out this year was I worked in a lot more levels of intensity than I have in the past, and it's also important to note that when you work in levels of intensity, you have to balance that with the mileage you're doing. So
Yeah,
there was a good fair bit when I was doing like say a short interval phase where my mileage was less than when I'm doing a long run phase because of the level intensity I'm working at.
that makes sense. Yeah, plan. Be smart about it. Get
Yeah,
it
because
figured
I
out.
think a lot of people like to be tied to a certain number and be like, this is my number I'm hitting.
Yeah,
But you have to consider the levels of intensity you're working in, or
yeah,
you could injure yourself and
yeah,
then take whatever runs you have planned for the future. They just won't happen because you're injured, right?
yeah, yeah. Definitely, definitely. Right. So with all the miles, whether you're doing not you specifically, but anyway, so if you're doing 100 miles a week or whatever's hard for you, or maybe 10 miles a week if you're new to running or something. But I want to touch on recovery. Like, one, how would you define active recovery? That's something kind of a word we gets thrown around and we hear. So, what do you call active recovery? And when, other than because I know my Garmin never lies to me when I look at it and it tells me, hey, you're not having a good day today or whatever. But yeah, what's your thoughts on recovery? How do you, I guess, tell someone how much time to take off, or is just body feel? And then what do you call like active recovery, or what's some things that people can do to help with that?
So personally, I use like Garmin to like hone into my body's metrics. I'll consider like HRV if
Okay.
I'm how much I'm recovered, or like resting heart rate even. And if someone has, the capability, like a device that can do that, I would ask them to pay attention. Actually, I use the Training Peak software, and when you use that as a coach, you can see all those things. So if
Okay.
someone's telling me, "Oh, I feel great," anything, and I'm like, "Oh, your body doesn't look like it feels great."
Uh-huh.
So, but back to active recovery. Uh, Really, like the saying goes, like movement is medicine. I really do believe in that,
Yeah.
and even just walking does good to loosen things up. Mobility exercises are something that I do on a daily basis to keep things loose. Like foam rolling too can be a form of like active recovery. Yoga.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a yoga person, but
Something to keep
you can
moving.
use
Yeah.
it. Yeah, something to keep moving. But even with that, then what you put into your body, like fuel wise, eating good meals, hydration, that can also aid in the recovery process. But what I think kind of beats all of that out is sleep. Like sleep is the most important thing.
Yeah. And I've heard that many a time, and I'm definitely on the sleep crew. I'm good about getting up early, but I like going to bed. At when I need to, especially if I have been training or just in general, because I think sleep and recovery. I'm gonna say recovery even, but sleep helps all that kind of your body get back on track if you've had either a hard week of training or traveled a lot or stress or whatever it is. I'm all about the sleep camp, especially if I have something coming up within 2 weeks, for sure. I really get strict around 2 weeks. I had heard before and multiple times amongst whatever inter content of running media things and read things and all that, but it's been I think it was 2 weeks, maybe. I want to say it's like 16 days or something, but the amount of time it takes to see like the return of muscle, like after work and effort. So something about, uh, gosh, how would you see it? Like if you do a workout, you're not going to see the benefits of that after 2 weeks or so at time. So in that time period, you definitely should just be working on blood flow and recovery and just kind of staying loose and everything. So don't push yourself. I've got a race in a week. I need to really get this long run in. Like it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can gain other than maybe some mental side of staying kind of like, I definitely believe there's that point, and you can, touch on that too, where you're like, I don't think I'm going to get any faster or fitter necessarily. So right now let's focus on what we eat and sleep and everything. But I really want to I got to move. Like I need to do like a 6 mile run or something like that. Is that difficult and you can even talk about like, again, a word that we hear a lot is like tapering and stuff. So when you're coaching someone or in your own experience, is it difficult? And do you see that as a problem or as yourself, like when you're getting closer to race day, and it's hard to not get out there or push yourself or hurt yourself and be smart and everything. And then what's tapering?
Yeah. So I think what's really important to include in any training plan is deload weeks. And
Okay.
so what I specifically follow is a 3-1. So I'm either building or holding mileage, and then I'll reduce 15 to 20%. And that's time for my body to recover, right? And then I'll step back up again and then recover. And I found that when you do that, it helps when you get to the taper because your body is used to a decrease in load.
Okay.
And really what I've even moved to in my own training and what I've prescribed for the people I'm coaching is tapering between a 10 to 12 day window. And if you really want to get specific with numbers, the tapering is a percentage of your load that's being reduced. You never want to just take out, especially faster running that you're doing that your body's used to, because your body's adapted to it. It craves it. So what's really good at the end of a taper is maybe moving back to a short little base phase or doing some strides or sprints, because also that will keep your running economy up. Because some people will, I think, taper or deload too high of a percentage, and then they get all these like insane taper pains. And when you take away the stimulus, your body wants to start repairing everything. If you take away way too much, you're going to feel a lot of these, what are they called, phantom pains or taper tantrums, where like your heart's palpitating or you're just anxious all of a sudden all the time, because even the hormonal balance is off when your body's used to running 50 miles a week and you did like 10 the next week. Right?
Yeah. Oh,
like everyone's
wow.
going to feel that to some degree. So reducing it by percentages is the best way. And really, if you stair step 15, 20, 10, 15, like if you were to do a 2 week, it would be like that. Or even if you were to do like a 10 or 12 day window, it would be like your volume and then like 40%. And then the next week's the race, right? And that's what I did for the last one. And I found that was maybe a little too aggressive, because I felt a lot of taper tantrums and
Really?
a lot of those signs and all those phantom pains. But a lot of it's also learning experience. And I think it's really cool just to, your bodies can be like your own experiment in a way in these things.
Right. And it's always changing, maybe new distances or new styles, or even, new gear or new area you're running in, or whatever. It's a constant, which is exciting, which is we like the part of the challenge. But you could just stick into a formula, it would be nice at first. I would think a lot of people would be like, oh, this is where we like stuff that works, and it's great when you can get the numbers to the right percentage and everything. But you change. We get older, things happen, whatever, you get hurt and then you got to recover, and that's totally different. And now you've got this pain in your knee or something else. But right, you must be able to adapt. And then especially on that side as a coach, if someone comes to you and they're coming out of, I always get hurt every year. I run, I do okay, but I have IT problem or whatever, and then so they're looking, how do I not get hurt every year, right? And then you introduce to them, Coach Phillips, like, look, we're going to go by percentage in this number, and then we're not going to cold turkey this taper thing. You need to come down, and they'll have this light that comes on, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, like that really worked.
Yeah. And if I can just even shout out someone I've been working with this whole year and seeing a lot of their progress, I don't think they'll mind at all. So one that's actually one of the High Plains Fleet guys, Chris Mott. I've really taken control of his training probably since June.
Okay.
And he's PR'd at tons of distances. His workouts have really turned around. I think he PR'd at Paladero by almost 2 hours.
Dang.
The 50 miler. So, and I'm using essentially, the same formula. He's going through the same phases that I'm going through, and he's getting ready to do the backland this weekend. So,
oh really?
So he'll be his second year at it, and so yeah, I think that's also something, as I've reflected, after the race, doing the 24-hour, and kind of how the expectation from people for me now is a little bit higher, and then how, just because I've been successful, like it's almost like I'm expected to have this knowledge base now. And because even like this whole year, it's been a really good and successful year for me.
Yeah.
And along the way, I've made sure to pay attention to my own training and what's working and what doesn't work too.
Yeah, right. It's a good, that comes with it too. You don't know unless you don't try. And right, you will learn more, or whatever the saying is about, mistakes. It's good to make mistakes, then you learn from it, and that's the best way to grow. And then you get your crosshairs kind of lined up better on target for things that do work. And again, back to being individual, certain people work with different ways. But yes, let's touch on your year, and we'll kind of I'll have more coaching questions. You mentioned earlier, I'm remembering a question I wanted to ask, a race that was a little longer than you thought it was.
Yeah.
Was it one of the Texas Ultras? Was it East Texas or one of them?
No, it was supposed to be a race where I just practiced 24-hour pace, but I blew past a turn and added 9 extra miles.
Okay.
So it was the Heartland 100K in Cassidy, Kansas.
Oh, the Heartland. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I was in the lead by quite a bit already at this turn that I blew by. So guess maybe part of it was because I didn't study the course map good enough. But anyway, so there was a car parked in front of the turn sign.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
was like a road going straight, and I was supposed to turn right. And I was like, well, I'm assuming I go this way. And I got there so early that the aid station was really even set up. So no one was really even like, oh, this guy's here.
What?
Like they just wrote down my bib because they had to do that at least to know that, to show that I was there. And I just went straight and I kept running and I was like, okay, there's supposed to be pink flags. Okay. There's no pink flags.
Is this on a road or like a?
It's like a gravel
trail?
road,
Okay.
gravel, like country road. And I should have turned around after I didn't see a flag the first mile, but I just kept going. So I did it to myself in a way. I kept going and then I got 4 miles out and I was like, I called my wife and I was like, I don't think I'm on the course. And then she checked like my location like against the map and she's like, yeah, you're not on the course. So I had to turn around back to the aid station. She drove back to that aid station. So I got there in a couple of mistakes. Was just so anxious that I was so behind the field now because, you know, the lead I had, like it was gone, right? So I came back, kind of just blew through that aid station, kept going, didn't really fill up, made, you know, these mistakes because I just wanted to get back in the lead and really just push the pace way faster than I should have been running when it was like 85 degrees out. It was way too hot. And by the time I finally caught up to the lead, I was just, my stomach was a wreck and I'd done so much damage that I needed to like recover over the next hour. And then with 25 miles to go, I caught back up to the person who was leading. And then from there, I had to just hold on and press. And I did. And finally, when it started cooling off, I was better and I finished strong. But yeah, the 62-mile race turned into a 71-mile race.
Jeez, I thought I'd seen that you still got first in that race, but
it was tough. Like I mean, I chose the race because it was an old school ultra, and I never really been to Kansas, and it just looked beautiful, and it was. But I mean, I can't make a mistake like that anywhere else, really. And it was a small race, small field, and everything. But
I feel like even on it 100, or I would say 100, yes, 100-mile too, but 100K race or one that well known or whatever, that I do get surprised by how often I hear runners getting off course. And there's a part, of course, it could be the runner not paying attention, but people that set up the races, you know, like there's been times where I thought I was like, I'm not going to miss a marker, and you just kind of get in a zone. And especially if it's a long race and you're 50 miles in, like, let's go, here we go. How am I feeling? You're thinking about this and that. Like, it needs to be very obvious. So if there's a car in the way and there's something, you know, that or whatever, it's okay. But we've all seen, I would say we all there. If you haven't, there's that Walmsley YouTube video where he took a wrong turn on like breaking the course record. And that like really, like y'all, how did they not have, and again, that's what my point is. Like, I don't see how some of these major races don't have painfully obvious, super, anyway, but you still got that. Turned out that was great. Yeah. You've had a great year. I want to compare your Sedona, was it 125, 135?
125. Yeah.
125. So that race, and then the 24-hour race you just did, what is it? Is there a Vipa? What's the name of the 24-hour race?
It was the Fat Ox Endurance Run.
Fat Ox, that's right. Okay. So two completely different animals. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But the 125 is a point-to-point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Sedona race. Trails, awesome. Arizona?
Yeah,
right?
I was from Jerome, Arizona to Flagstaff via like trail system. Because if you drive on the road, it's like 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But, you know, there's all these awesome trails in Arizona and you kind of sneak through and you can take the long way to Flagstaff. And I remember what was really interesting about when I was at the start line, you could see Flagstaff in the distance. You could see the mountains I was running to. And I was like, oh man, I have to travel this far. Like it was like a big, like,
Yeah.
like that.
Fun little side note, not running related, but in my career when I was getting into audio stuff and media things, and I was helping a team, a paranormal activity TV show that was just kind of starting up. and they flew me to Arizona. They were from Texas, and we went to Jerome to
Ghost Town. Yeah, it's known as that.
investigate the jail there. Super old, very cool. And that's my first time being in Arizona, and it's really neat. And it's way up there, and there's some twisty stuff, and it's very cool. But so yeah, so the trail, if it starts there and you get all the way down, so you have 125 miles of that, and you got third, I believe.
Yeah, I had to. Did you want me to kind of talk about it or what?
Well, I was going to say, I guess finishing the thought, the comparison, we can though. But the 24-hour, the Fat Ox is like almost a 1 mile loop on pavement. Is that correct?
Yeah, concrete sidewalk.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Very different.
Yeah, two totally different animals, but that just goes to show, the range of kind of mental fitness you have to have to get it all done. But very just two different things totally. But yeah, so how was the yes, let's talk about the Sedona 125 and how that was. Any wrong turns there, or did you hold pretty? I think I tried to I remember kind of hopping in trying to watch the live stuff for a little bit here and there. You're pretty much like top 5 most of it or all of it, right?
Yeah, so even when I was talking to my coach about doing that Sedona in the beginning of the year and then like a flat 24-hour at the end of the year, it was a little perplexing into that because they are like 2 different sides of a coin. And I just thought, I have Colorado Canyon next to me and I can train on some pretty good technical trail, and I've always wanted to go to Arizona. And it's like a thing where you watch the Cocodona 250 live stream and you're just sucked in. And I'm like, I don't think I can do 250 miles yet, but 125 sounds fun. So that's how I kind of thought of doing that. And I knew I wanted to pull out all the stops. I knew I wanted to podium there because it was my first ever Viper race. And it's a bigger chase. Like I found that when I've gone to these, like a race like that and a race like Fat Ox, there's more people like me in that they are at the end of the race. A lot of the races I do, say here locally or regionally, it's just me to a certain point. So in Sedona, for example, I got to the start line like almost right when the gun was going off because I had to use the bathroom right before. So I was just so frazzled, and I was maybe like 10 or 12 people deep. So I was waving through people and sprinting just to get to the lead pack. And then when I finally did, I sat, and I mean, we were doing like low 7-minute pace in the first like half marathon.
Oh man,
it was. I mean, also was a lot of downhill, but it really just fried my legs, and I didn't really feel that till like mile 50. And I probably had the worst night of my life. Like I could not run a step. I just had throbbing headaches, and one of my friends was pacing me, and we were expecting like my pace chart was like, this is like a 3-hour section. It was like a 5-hour section because I had to hike a lot.
Oh man.
And, I contemplated DNFing, but I came back to life, and luckily, and so I was in a place where instead of being only 30 minutes off the lead, I was now like 3 hours off the lead, and I couldn't make that deficit. So I just had to hold on to my spot. And even the lead women were coming up on me in like mile 90, which is like, oh my gosh, like it really just made me want to push hard. So I had a really, really solid 12-mile section where I was going like 9-minute pace to this beautiful, like picturesque countryside called Walnut Canyon. And then the last 20, I had to, when we're getting into Flagstaff, I had to really drop because there was someone who was only like 5 minutes behind me.
Oh,
but by the end, I really pushed, and that gap grew to 30 because I was able to push through the end. And I remember just learning a lot from that. And because I think in 2023, I was really strict about my pacing, and I was at Sedona very like frivolous about it. I was like, I'm going to run hard. I can run hard. And I paid for it. So then I spent the rest of the year trying to get back to that.
Oh, wow.
Good, sustainable pacing. And I made mistakes still. I made a mistake in my 12-hour at in Loveland, Colorado, at the Front Range Ultra Days with pacing, and paid for it. I obviously made that mistake at Heartland with the wrong turn and then the pacing, and I knew that if when I got to the start line at Fat Ox, I had to stay true to a sustainable pace if I wanted to win, and I knew it was going to take till hour 16, 17 for it to pay off, and it did. And then I just ran away with it after that, and it's very powerful when you're running by someone and probably from their perspective they're standing still and I'm like still moving, right?
Yeah.
So really, Fat Ox, just in a nutshell, was the best execution I've had all year, in my opinion. And I think it showed, as even in the live stream, no one paid attention to me. I was in 22nd place. And then by, hour 16, when I got a 100-mile mark, I'm like in the top 4 or 5. And then finally people started paying attention to me when I took the lead.
Yeah.
So I think that also just lent itself to my stature is, I don't know if I really look like I'm a runner or like that. And, I'm also like pretty short. And I think that's just a great thing even about ultra running is you can never expect what someone's ability is until they show it to you.
Oh yeah. Right, both these races, and we've kind of talked about, or I like to talk about, like the mental side of things too. So I'm so glad, right, that you didn't DNF in the Sedona, because I'm sure you must have thought about that race during, again, mile 100 in the Fat Ox. So where do you kind of pull from on the mental? It's a lot of time by yourself, better on a 1 mile loop. I'm sure there's probably bodies and people all the time, but I'm sure there was stints in Sedona where there's not a soul around, right? It's just you got what's between your ears, you're rocking and rolling and trying to pull it together and stuff. And so where do you pull like your mental strength from, kind of reflecting on things? Do you talk to yourself? Do you like get spiritual and think, or like what? Because that's a big thing with trail runners. They, for the most part, I know I like to, because you like to be outside. You're kind of in nature. And when you get into these longer and ultra runs and things, like there's time alone that is real good for like self-reflection and therapy, but can also be kind of this hidden danger if you don't know how to get through it, properly, especially during night races and things. But yeah, do you ever get, spiritual, or what do you kind of go into when there's stints with nobody and it's real long, right? You've been on your feet for 11 hours or something. Kind of the mental side of that too.
So in Sedona, a majority of it was alone, and especially in like the heat of the day, and then when I finally got a pacer in the evening. But really, unless something is going wrong in my body, like my stomach, or if I have a headache or legs or something hurts, like time really just disappears for me. And I think that lends itself to the way I pace when I'm paced properly. That if you start at a sustainable rate from the beginning, you're saving a lot of mental energy. And later on, you can parcel that out till it's gone, right? And really, that's the way I think a 24-hour needs to be run at a sustainable rate. And because the 2 times I've done one, it's how I ran it. And it really wasn't a huge tax mentally. It was, I'm out here running and making it work. But even when I am going through a rough patch, I think about, I put a lot of time into this. I've been here before, because everyone has rough patches. And, I have to just go into my toolbox and do the things that can fix whatever's wrong. And Sedona was one of the first, I guess it was the first time where none of those tools worked. So it was like it was uncharted territory for me. And that's where like the thoughts of like DNF and all that came into my mind. But I think as you experience more ultras, you gain more tools, more experience, and your mind is prepared for when things go wrong.
Yeah. If you flirt more with those areas, pushing yourself to do something you're not used to, sprints, track work, you never ran whatever, how many hours you run it and stuff. Right. When you get around those thresholds again, it's a little more acceptable or less of like a shock to your
Exactly.
system. So you're a little more prepared. Yeah. That makes, having the tools in your toolbox for it. That's a great way to put it. I mean, it makes sense to me. Right.
Yeah. Hopefully it makes sense to listeners too.
Yeah. Right. So if someone is, we'll touch on a coach question, and what's like again, someone comes to you and you're working with them and everything. Is there like a common thing that you see people struggle with when either taking what you're telling them or what you're kind of trying to help them with, or like a certain workout style or something like that? Is there just like a common thing that you've seen occur that people could be aware of that could help them like to notice it and like be better?
Yeah, I notice this is also like the downside of like Strava and all those things. People are running too fast, too often. People I think are, this is wide generalizations, right? And, I'm guilty of this to some degree, really, really invested and want a low number on their watch pace wise. They and they'll run too fast, and maybe in the moment it feel okay.
Yep, I am guilty. Yep.
But how is the next day? How is 2 days later? How is your weekend? Really, even my own personal training, like in 2023, I did a lot of my zone 1 runs in like low 8s, high 7s. But in 2024, I slowed down and really zoned into what my body was telling me, and I had a great year. So I think also some people are afraid that, or maybe embarrassed that, well, if I have to run a 10-minute pace to keep my heart rate in the right zone, that's way too slow. But if you really want to see progress, that's what your body's telling you it needs right now. And after a while, that pace, like, it does lower. Like when I started doing ultras, like my zone 1 was like 9:45, 9:30 pace. And I just stayed true to honing into the signs my body was giving me, and the fitness came. And that's what is really hard about ultras. I think people just want to go fast really quick. Like there's this famous Usain Bolt quote. It's like, I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds, and most people give up after 2 weeks. And that's applicable to ultra running as well. It's the long game that matters the most. It's long race, long game, right? And that's part of, even back to the philosophy of 80-20 training and running. It's like 80% of your runs are within a manageable conversational zone. And that's tied more or less to the heart rate that you're running at. So for me, that's in the low 130s to mid 130s. And if one day, like the day after a workout I do, and I have to run 9-minute pace to stay in 130, I'm going to run 9-minute pace. Because not only have to be disciplined to the training and doing the work, you need to be disciplined to what your body's telling you and what your body needs. Or you'll overwork yourself, overtrain, lead to injury, mental fatigue, and just dig yourself into a hole that could take months, year to dig yourself out of.
Right.
So I think that's part of why I've been able to sustain, like to race as often as I have and train as frequently as I've had, because I always don't go overboard. I keep it like just right on where it needs to be.
Right. 100%. I would think, and everyone's usually guilty of that. I know I am too. Like I mentioned kind of at the top of the episode here, where I like, we're not going to go faster than this pace. And I'm like, feel like I'm going so slow, and like, look, you need to. And then after a while, I kind of settle in. I'm like, I'm glad we stayed here. Like this feels good. You need to slow down. You've been running too fast lately. Let's work this out. So right. Like you're saying, most people probably are get out there and run too fast, and we're all guilty of wanting, what are people going to see on my Strava or record?
Yeah.
What is my average pace going to say? Right. And it's It's so dangerous, but it's
Yeah.
part of it. But we need to listen to our bodies, right? You can't.
And really, a big thing that I believe in is, one training session should, destroy me so much that I can't run the next day or the day after that, with the exception to like maybe a race, right?
Yeah,
I shouldn't have like hero workouts where you like go real hard. Those are dangerous. And I just realized, I think, unnecessary in training in general. You need to sustainable efforts stack up more than big spikes and then like big drops.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've heard that from people and from smart people, right? That say like, look, man, yeah,
great minds think alike.
Yeah, build up, take it slow. You will see it; it'll come. It's like you said, the long game. And if you are being coached, right, be honest with your coach. Coach, whoever, or Philip can't help you if he asks like, well, how did that feel? It seemed like you were going a little fast there. And you go, oh no, it was fine. It was good. I'm just that good. Yep. That's my normal pace. I know you told me to go slower, but that just, yep. And then you just keep, chipping away at yourself and you're like, what happened? I'm injured now. Like, well.
Yeah. Or sometimes even when you analyze someone's workout, if you see like the first interval is like really fast.
Oh yeah.
But by the last one, they're not even close to like that time. You can tell like that workout wasn't executed properly. Executed poorly, in fact. Really, if your last rep, can be as fast as your first rep through all that fatigue, that's a really great workout.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. You should be able to finish the same way, right? That's the goal. That's the day. That's a good way. If you finish it and, honest with yourself again, like, oh, wow, I did it. All right. So we'll kind of wrap it up here. Some other exciting news on top of all your other awesome stuff. Oh, we did want to touch, we did mention High Plains Elite. Right. So that was back in episode 26. And this is going to be like 40, man, this might be episode 57, 8, 48. Anyway.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Quite a, so that was episode 26. And and I saw you were starting that team of some guys with the High Plains Elite. And you were on there and talked about that with Aaron, I believe. So very cool. And I'm sure it's good to have this group of people around you to everyone kind of helps each other. And then such a cool place to run. I've got to do the Paladuro run this coming year in 2025. And with that, so you started a podcast, sir, which is awesome. And I'm all about it. And that is the same. Go ahead. What's the exact name or what?
Yeah. So in this off season, with all the free time I've had now, since I'm not running, I finally decided to get this idea off the ground. So I started a podcast called the Infinite Endurance Podcast. Our next episode, I don't know when this will release, but our next episode comes out on December 6th. And so it'll be Friday. And really, I wanted to start a podcast that not only told stories of endurance athletes, because I want it more than just runners. I want all kinds of feats of endurance, but also the mental side that people go through. Because even though we all get to the finish line, we all experience something different along the way. And I think it's using that as inspiration for other people who might be new to the sport, or maybe someone who's in a rut and trying to get back into it training wise consistently or anything like that. And so that's why I came with the idea of like infinite endurance, because I think that as you learn your limit, you can exceed it through this sustainable, consistent training. And back to even High Plains Elite, a lot of that is rooted and happens with a sense of community and having others around you who share in your same goal of, pushing your limit and discovering what you have inside. Because even at Fat Ox, it was one of those big aha moments for me in the moment when I was pulling it off. It was like, okay, this is what I've been training for, and it's actually happening. And there's people out there who the same things happen to them. I can't be the only one.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, it's
even no matter the length of the race, if it's a short road race or a 200-mile race, the last person standing, like feats of endurance happen every day.
Yeah. Very good. It's sometimes it's fun. You explain to someone who doesn't or wouldn't classify themselves as a runner, right? And like with other sports, some like that's your thing. Like I get it, cool, whatever. And then with running, people are like, that just seems who would do that. But people in that kind of in this our ecosystem, we love it, and that's a big part of the body, I think, and community of trail running, and part of why I wanted to make this podcast, because I just love it, and I like seeing people push themselves and get better. We like pushing people or helping people, get better. A lot of us volunteer races, not just to get credits, but because we see our friends and you get to know people and names out there and you're part of it. It's a real nice like space like to be in, of people trying to do better, and it is hard things and you lots to learn, and it's exciting over here, and it's all, there's just a lot going on, and I hope other people in whatever their hobby or sports are have that kind of same vibe. But I'm glad that you're starting that too, and you'll have your your perspective and your point on it and everything, so it just helps everybody kind of grow, right? All the ships will rise. I'm tearing up all the quotes I'm thinking of when they come into my head, but rising tide brings all ships up, or whatever that quote is too, same kind of thing. Yeah, wonderful. I'm glad that's awesome. So where can people find you? They like this, like that Philip guy, he's cool, I need a coach, or they want to learn more about you, right? So they can what's a good place to get a hold of you, or where can they find you and stuff?
Yeah, so I'll start with my personals first. So on Instagram, I'm just at Ultra PJ Blue. On Facebook and Strava, you can just search Philip J. Sebastiani. And coaching wise, you could send me an email. That's psebastiani at infinite-endurance coaching.com. And then the name of the podcast, like I said previous, is Infinite Endurance Podcast. So I don't know, there was a lot. I can send you all the links too.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely have it down in the description for all the details below, so people can be able to click that. And we'll have this also in the audio version, just on Spotify, wherever you find the podcast. And then since we're doing this, on a meet and recording it, it'll be able to go onto YouTube as well. So that's also a nice touch. So it'll get out there, but it'll be in the details and everything. So, Philip, man, thank you so much for being on again for a second time, and kind of digging into your 2024 year, and kind of giving us a look into your coaching brain and everything, man. You're an awesome guy. Keep on rocking, man. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. I really enjoyed it.